Hey, good afternoon and welcome again to Saturday Sesh. We're here today on May 16th, a Saturday as always, and today's special guest is Danielle Rosellison from Trailblazin Productions. And we're going to get to talk to Danielle and find out what she does and what she's experienced and what she'd like to share with us in a little bit. But we always like to kind of go around the room, see who we have, so that you all know who you're talking to. The purpose of Saturday Sesh is not only to share information from industry professionals, but to give you an opportunity to network a little bit. We know that not everybody has the opportunity to visit a professional organization regularly, like you may in some cities. So we want you to have that contact, that ability to make some more friends, and also because we not only teach at Seattle Central, but also through University of Nevada, Las Vegas, we like to have some cross-pollination. We like to give you all an opportunity to get to know some people outside of your zone, because especially in these days and the way everything is looking right now, it's nice to have friends all over. So we want to help facilitate that a little bit. We always want to welcome you and encourage you to join us on Facebook and on Instagram. And that way you get all the updates and reminders about what's going on here, who we're going to be speaking to, and we want you to be part of the conversation. So thanks for being here today. We're going to do the little round robin. And if you don't mind, how about Kristen? Would you start us off and talk to us about who you are and where you are?
I'm Kristen Baldwin. I'm the Executive Director of the Cannabis Alliance. I'm also one of Trey's students in the medical marijuana consulting class here at Seattle Central. And right now I'm in very gray, very pretty green Briar, Washington. And I'm excited to meet all you.
Excellent. And Kristen's doing fantastic work. She's right now helping the Alliance to put the framework around our upcoming Cannabis Summit, which I hope she'll plug later in this call. Even though it's kind of early, we want folks to get it on their calendar to be aware of what's going on, especially now that we're going to have a virtual meeting and a virtual conference, and so people will be able to participate that might not have before.
Yeah, I'll plug it later. I promise.
Awesome. Thank you. Annie, good morning or good afternoon. Welcome. Would you mind introducing yourself? You're on mute right now. There you go.
All right. Good morning. I'm Annie Butler, and I'm also in Trey's class, and I work in human resources and higher education.
And that's excellent. It's so nice that we draw people from all kind of backgrounds, because as Caitlin and Danielle will both tell you, we need the skills from all over. You know, it's still a young industry, and we're creating the framework that makes this thing work. So thanks for bringing your skills to the table.
Thank you, Trey.
Kelly, how you doing? Could you introduce yourself a little bit? I know you got to say hello before, but not everybody was on. Tell us who you are and where you are.
Thank you, Trey. Hello, everyone. I am in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I have worked in the wine industry for the last 16 years of my career, primarily in sales, but also in operations. And I took Trey's class in the fall of 2018 at UNLV. And for the last couple of years, I've been considering switching industries to try a new challenge. So here I am, just trying to get familiar with the community.
Excellent. Thanks for being here again. You're getting to be a regular. Nice to have you back.
Thank you, Trey.
Caitlin, good morning. Good afternoon. We're just doing a round robin. If you don't mind, you're not shy. Would you tell us who you are, where you are, what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name is Caitlin Ryan. I am in the Seattle area and president of the board for the Cannabis Alliance. I work very closely with Kristen every day. My background is also education. I have a PhD in arts education. And so it's always fun when these two worlds get to overlap together. I also am a co-owner of a tier 3 producer processor. And I guess that's the list for now.
No, and thanks for being here. Caitlin's doing fantastic work. We'll hear more about the Alliance later. Danielle, we'll learn, has also had a leadership role, a significant leadership role in the Alliance, which I hope she'll talk a little bit about. And like I said, we're going to plug the Alliance and let you know generally. We always like to remind folks about the importance of professional organizations. If you're not in Washington, like I've talked to some of you all, we really encourage you to get to know the people in your neighborhood, what's working for them, what's not. And on the days that it's not working, it's so nice to be able to console with other people who are in the same challenge as you are. And even if they don't have an answer, it's nice to know you're struggling alongside of good people. Let's see, where are we? Chuck, how you doing, Chuck? Could you introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. My name's Chuck Olivier. I'm in Seattle, Washington. I am a cannabis weighing and traceability expert. I have a business that sells scales and traceability hardware nationwide and in all regulated cannabis states. I am enrolled in the Washington State Medical Marijuana Consultant Program just for general knowledge, just to increase my knowledge about this plant that I had a relationship with most of my life. And my professional background prior to weed was healthcare, and this class has just been amazing. It's all the neurons are firing again.
Awesome. And Chuck is doing a great job. Chuck's one of our test students. And so he's been helping us with new content, and he's volunteered himself to go through some of that content and then be highly critical to me, and which really helps. And I don't say that in a bad way, Chuck. I appreciate all the feedback. So he's helping make us better on the front side. Thank you, Chuck.
You're welcome, my brother. You're a charming guy. I'm happy to do the work.
Susan, how you doing? Susan, welcome this afternoon to Saturday Sesh. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, thanks. It's great to join you. So I just started the class a few weeks ago, took your class on pain management earlier and just loved it. So helpful. So I came to it for education and to see where it kind of leads me. I've been in a different field for a long time, but just watching people struggle with this and want to get better information.
Excellent.
Yeah,
and where
all I can.
Where are you located?
I'm in Issaquah, Washington.
Awesome.
Yep. It's good
Well,
to
welcome.
see you. Thanks.
Good to see you. Let's see. How about Reese? Reese, have you hadn't had an opportunity to speak, I don't think.
Hello. Hi, Danielle. My name is Reese Newmark. My background is in more of a medical marijuana, like the old 69.51A days, family business kind of dispensary stuff. But now I'm lucky enough to work for the wonderful Trailblazin Danielle, and I just wanted to observe on my Saturday and listen in.
Excellent. Well, nice to have you here. Thanks for being here. You're on the
you.
job right now, I guess, with the mask?
No, I just wear it everywhere.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks for being here.
She better not be working on here.
No, I'm just hanging out at my mom's.
Let's see, where are we?
95.
Graham, would you like to say hello? We got you on mute right now, but you can take that off on the bottom left.
It looks like Graham put something out in the chat. Like an introduction.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, there we go. Graham is in Las Vegas, has completed 2 courses through UNLV and a graduate of Auburn. So great. Glad to have you here. Lara Kaminsky, I know that name. Hey, Lara, would you like to say hi?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Lara Kaminsky. I'm currently the program manager for a program within an analytical laboratory called Confidence Analytics. The program is Tested with Confidence. It's trying to elevate brands that are going above and beyond when it comes to quality assurance testing, because not everybody tests for pesticides. So those that do, we want to make sure everybody knows about them. Prior to that, I was the executive director for the Cannabis Alliance.
Yes, and she says that humbly. Lara really helped to take Cannabis Alliance in its early days and to build it and to build the family, so much, and she's much loved in our community, and so thanks for being here today, Lara.
Oh, thanks, Trey. Much love back.
Stacy, good morning, Stacy. Have we talked to you yet? I don't think so.
I don't think you have either. It's great to be here. So yeah, I'm Stacy. I work for Confidence Analytics also. I'm still just drinking coffee, excuse me. This pandemic thing's got my sleeping patterns a little wanky right now. Used to work with Danielle, love Trailblazin Productions. I'm the producer of Bellingham Bud Fest, and we just secured a date for next year after having to cancel this year's event. So July 17th, it's a Saturday, 2021. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We don't know what's going to happen, whether they'll allow groups of thousands of people. So anyways, wow. Yeah. I'm on the board of Seattle Hemp Fest too. This is not a good time to be involved in event production.
No, I hear you. And Stacy, thanks for being here. For those of you who are not familiar, Bellingham Bud Fest had a tremendously successful first year inaugural event last year, right? And involved politicians and local community leaders and business owners and really, you know, that's what it's all about is helping make this helping educate people so that they understand that a lot of what they might know about cannabis didn't come based out of science, but out of fear or just misinformation to begin with. So thanks for doing what you do, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Jim MacRae, how you doing, Jim?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Being involved in the industry here peripherally for the past 5 years or so, as a interested student of what is going on, the change in society, and expressing that largely through working with the data that the industry, at least up until the last couple of years, was spitting a lot of out. So I did a lot of work specifying what was going on in the industry. I'll share a piece of brand new news for you, which is kind of exciting. You know, good news for those in the industry. March was by far the biggest retail sales month in the history of the industry. It beat last August's first month of over $100 million of retail sales pre-tax. So it hit 112 million in March, and that was probably partially people buying up in anticipation of possible store closures to stock up, but it was a noticeably large month, and the running year total exceeded on a pre-tax basis, what was it? $1.1 billion so of retail sales, rolling 12 months through March. Exciting stuff. So good to see you, Trey. Pleasure to be part of this, Danielle.
Hey, Jim, thanks for being here. And those of you who don't follow, Jim works, like he said, with analytics and really making that real for folks, helping people understand trends, helping hold our regulators' feet to the fire sometimes. Sometimes, you know, being quiet doesn't serve the purpose. And so Jim is quick to bring out facts and help people understand trends and how that can hurt an industry or even consumers. And we'll talk more about pesticides and stuff like that. So Jim, thanks for the work you've done and continue to do. Kim, could you say hello? We're gonna go to Kim and then to James, and then we're gonna introduce Danielle. So we don't. So we have plenty of time for y'all's questions. Kim, good morning or good afternoon.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I had trouble getting in. Hi, everybody. What are we doing? Just an intro?
Just an intro, yeah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kim Ducote, and I'm a cannabis advocate and activist, and I'm the membership director of the Cannabis Alliance, which is a nonprofit trade association here in Washington State, working toward the vital, ethical, and sustainable cannabis industry. Thank you.
Excellent. And Kim has been doing that work for years, and then brings to that work tremendous knowledge about sustainability and great practices to reduce trash and waste. And so she's always keeping us honest, and so she's educating on us on a whole nother level. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you.
Mr. James Harmon was one of the first students I've known here in Washington State, and glad to have you back, James. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty well. A little better. Sorry I've been away. Back issues. So late mornings.
But good to have you here. I see your cat's joining us too. Nice to have both of y'all.
One of them, that's Yachty. She's a tabby Bengal, so she can be kind of ornery. And occasionally chatty, so if you hear some weird sounds, that would be her.
Oh, and thanks for saying that. Well, I've got a Boston Terrier named Blueberry, and she snores like louder than I do. So if you hear this in the background, that's what the noise is also. Am I speaking too loud? No. I got this on, so sometimes it throws me off. But I don't know if you can hear her in the background, but it's mighty. We wanted to get to our guest, and that's the reason we're here today. We're fortunate enough to have great friends in the industry and a lot of them were online today. And so thank you all for being here. But I know the star of the show today is Danielle Rosellison. Danielle is the CEO of Trailblazin Productions. Not only that, she's the former president of the Cannabis Alliance. She has been involved in her Chamber of Commerce. She's involved locally on a state level with politics and helping to drive change. Always an advocate. And on top of all that, she's also married and has children and homeschooling and doing all that too. So welcome.
These days. Thank you.
Glad you're still smiling.
You have to smile. You know, that's the only thing you can do in crazy times.
So that was the brief bio. Tell us a little bit more about you though, Danielle.
Oh man. Well, first, thank you so much for having me, Trey. This is incredible. Thank all you guys for showing up. I see a lot of really wonderful faces. Trey, we also miss Jason. So when we get to a good stop, make sure.
My bad.
So many of you have heard the stories, so you're gonna just have to bear with me. My father was the first in his family to go to college, and he took a quarter off of college and was drafted for Vietnam. He came back a changed man, like many people did during that time. If you fast forward about 22, 23 years, 30 years, I was 22 when I figured out that the room in the basement with the plants and the lights that I wasn't allowed into, what he was doing in there. If you fast forward another 5-ish years, we started Trailblazin. Right before we took down our very first harvest, very legal harvest, we hired 15 people, went to take down one of our very first harvests, and my dad became one of the 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. So this industry and this plant is so much more to me than it's so much more to me than just a business, right? This cannabis is medicine. It's about social justice. It's about our veterans. It's about a little bit of rebellion. It's about all of those things that I think the cannabis community really holds dear and true. And so that's really, it's because of my dad that I am where I am today. I will also throw in that my husband has been part of the cannabis industry since he was 12. And we were laughing just yesterday that if you ever told his teachers that where he is now, they would not be surprised that he owned a cannabis company, but would be surprised that he's doing fairly well at it.
Yeah, it's funny how things change like that, right?
Who knew that those talents were going to come in handy?
No, there's a prophetic scene from a Cheech and Chong movie where you might know where one of them asks the other one, he's like, hey man, why don't you get a job? He's like, I got a job and I'm ahead of the curve. So when all this goes legal, I'm going to be positioned to really, really do well, basically. And that was 30 years ago.
Yeah. Have you read Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Outsiders, where he takes people, he talks about, timing has a lot to do with everything. And for us being our age and right now in this time of legalization, like our timing is there to be successful with this, where if you were, I see really amazing growers that are, 20 years our senior and they just can't hang because the intensity level of this industry is more than they want to bear at this point in their lives. So.
Could you talk to us a little bit about that to open us up? And I know if I asked you what's it like to be a licensed cannabis grower, that's a conversation that could go on a while. So what are some things that you didn't know when you were going into this that have been eye-opening? Some things that people might not expect or understand about, how difficult it is.
Oh my gosh. So we came from, we have a small business background. We had a one-man ski and bike shop. We had a small property management company. We're educated, we got good grades, and we came from the medical community. Cannabis has been part of our lives forever. So we thought this was a pretty conservative risk. We thought that, we had all the ducks in a row to make this successful. Holy moly. I had no idea it was going to be so difficult. I didn't realize, I thought we got into the legal industry to follow the rules. I didn't realize that normal business people are good at finding every nook and cranny to get around the rules, right? So that really surprised me that, here I thought we were, becoming more legitimate. And years later, I was like, really, we know how to skirt rules. So that was the biggest eye opener. I also, we fought in the beginning millionaires, and now we're fighting billionaires. And so, money talks is a real thing that not everybody has, intrinsic morals and values that I would agree with. I firmly believe that the pie is big enough for everybody. And I've learned that some people just want the whole pie, and their goal is they get the whole pie and no one else gets anything. And I just have a tough time wrapping my head around that. And the last thing, I didn't realize how involved we'd have to be. If you've ever heard the saying, if you're not at the table, you get eaten. Like, that meant something once we got involved, because there's so much political change that has to happen. That if your politicians and your local government and your local business people don't know who you are, then they will shun you. So that's like another full-time job.
And speaking of morals and values, could you talk to us a little bit about how your cannabis has grown and how that, well, I'm saying it because I know you all have a unique approach. And so you could talk to us a little bit about Trailblazin Productions Cannabis.
Oh, I'd love to plug. So when we came into the legal cannabis market, it was in 2014. We bought 5 LED lights at that time. And at that time, people didn't even know if LEDs grew cannabis. So we bought 5 LED lights. We found the one that we liked the most because it had the least amount of moving parts, which means the least amount of things to break. And we put that in our medical grow for our last round. And it did in fact work. And we were like, we just signed, sealed, and delivered. We're like, this will work, let's go for it. So we put those, we've been 100% LED since 2014. What we did not realize was that everything changes with LED lights, and therefore your watering regime, your nutrient regime, your timelines for things, I mean, everything changes. And we lost about 60% of our yield. Yeah, I see you, James. We went from 2 to 3 pounds per 1,000 watts to less than a pound. And it took us about a year to get that back to where we had figured out what to do. So we're 100% LED. We do that because we believe in the environment. We believe that this is the wave of the future. And because of our location, sun-grown is not an option because of where we are. And climate change, I'm not sure how much longer sun-grown is going to be viable. So 100% LED, that causes us to use about 60% less energy than other traditional indoor grows. We're 100% pesticide free. We do not put anything on our plants, which for an indoor grow operation is quite the deal. That said, I would not encourage anyone to take somebody's word at that. We pesticide and heavy metal test everything. Even though Washington State does not require it, we pesticide test every 5 pounds, and we heavy metal and pesticide test every harvest. And so we're able to do that through exceptional clean practices. When we do turnaround in our rooms, we literally take the fans apart and the dehumidifiers and the water reservoirs, and we wash everything, the tubes. We use an H2O2 solution so that we're not putting bleach into our systems, but rather it evaporates into water and oxygen. So we're 100% LED, we're 100% pesticide free. We just hit 100% organic, which is really exciting for us. We were like that 85, 90, but now we are able to reuse all of our soil, and we're not buying liquid nutrients, so we're not paying to ship, a water-based product all over the world. No, it's not looking that way. And then finally, of all of the companies in Washington State, there are 1,500 grows in Washington State, and 2 of us are medically certified, and we are one of them. Because this is really about patients, and this is about cannabis as medicine, and how do we make sure that we take care of those people that is the reason we got to where we are today and has pushed cannabis forward, led legalization forward, who in Washington State have been totally and completely forgotten.
No, and as a patient, I've thanked you before, but I'll thank you again publicly. And I know we have several patients on the line here today, and it is hugely important. And I know it's also expensive, and people don't always appreciate the extra expense you go through to make that happen, right?
They don't. We use a lot of beneficial insects too, and I always tell people, I'm like, a bottle of Eagle 20 is $20, and we're spending at least $100 on insects on a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Danielle was nice enough, and her husband Juddy, to have me in early on as we rolled out our coursework, and we were building our class on cannabis growing for the home grower, and so we were able to go up and create some content with them and enjoy their grow, and it's really exceptionally beautiful, especially with the LED lights. I had to learn how to photograph under LED lights. But it's a beautiful operation, and so
Thank
thanks.
you.
You've been a long time friend.
Thank you. You too. I want to mention too that our corporate makeup is all of our upper management are people of color or minorities, as in women, and we work really hard to create a diverse group. Because as we're moving forward, making sure that we are the representation that we want to see in the world, that we are showcasing that from internally as well. So, all of our upper management are women or people of color. We're pretty split even down the way as male, female. We try to maintain all sorts of, LGBTQ, all of those different pieces to make sure that we are living what we want to see in the world.
Boy, isn't it nice to hear a CEO say that? It is. It really is. And like we talk about in class a lot of times, cannabis is probably one of the most diverse communities you can belong to, because we really do represent every walk of life, and so it's really nice. And Andy, I saw your hand earlier. We'll get to questions in a little bit, but I'm not ignoring you. Danielle, could you talk to us a little bit about advocacy? I know I mentioned that you've worked with the Chamber of Commerce, but I imagine your view on advocacy has evolved and changed. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's exhausting, but it's really important, is kind of what it comes down to. I remember driving to Olympia and being in my car, not having a clue what I was doing, but knowing that change needed to be made, and like crying in my car, and then just being like, Danielle, get out of the car, start walking, just do it. And I walked into Olympia and started like knocking on doors, and you hit some home runs and you don't. And that was, just kind of being fearless and realizing that if we didn't get out in front of this and do this, that somebody else is, and I'm not going to like the way that they stand. So there's that side of it. There's also, being a young female mother, while I clean up really well, right? And so I look the part. And although I might enjoy a 3-day music festival as much as the rest of you, when I walk into the Capitol or when I walk into business meetings, I've got pearls and slacks, and they can't tell. One of my gifts is I'm incredibly diplomatic. And so as I would walk into these, like the Chamber of Commerce, when I started the Chamber of Commerce, they didn't have any cannabis companies. About 30% of them were incredibly excited. About 30% of them wanted nothing to do with me and made sure that I knew they wanted nothing to do with me. And then about 30% said, in private email said, hey, I totally support you privately, but I can't support you publicly. And so you really get this range of responses, but you have to be seen. And now, I was nominated CEO of the Year for the Chamber of Commerce. I've been Ambassador of the Year of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a board member of the Association of Washington Businesses. Like, as soon as they realize that you're not scary, then they start bringing you in, and it helps create legitimacy around when we want to try and get policy changed or rules changed or whatever else.
Legitimacy, that's a big word. So could you talk to us a little bit? We talk a lot of times with students about lighting small fires that, whether it's your family or even your partner, that people aren't going to change their attitude overnight, but sometimes it's lighting a small fire or engaging with the person on some level, and then move on, and come back and pick it up at some point. How has your elevator speech changed? Or could you give us an example of, if you only got a few, a short amount of time with somebody, what do you try to mention?
Well, it depends who my audience is, right? Your target audience say a lot about that. When we go to Olympia, from the standpoint of the Cannabis Alliance, which I fully support and was the president for several years, we go in with what our association members have told us that they care about, and those are elevator speeches, and we stick to that. Lara Kaminsky on the chat mentioned the Farm Bureau. I mean, the Farm Bureau is a bunch of Trump-supporting, gay-hating, old white men that believe that cannabis is the devil. And so when we go into that type of atmosphere, we don't mention what we do. We're simply there to create relationships, and then sooner or later it comes out what we do, and they're shocked. And we're able, because we started off with this foundation of relationship building, it is easier for them to become friends and to see legitimacy with us later on, and it's working. So I mean, my speech, my pitch has changed, from the beginning to just, I guess, being more refined. And I listen more now and really target it to what the people, what they need to hear from me or not hear from me.
Okay, let me give you a specific audience then with that, in regard to that question. You're a mom, and I understand that at least one of your children is pretty outspoken in school. So how do you talk to other parents about this? Well, first, could you tell us about your children being advocates, and then do you get any brushback from that from other parents? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so the scariest thing is that I have always been concerned that what we do will negatively affect our children, right? Well, so Radler is 10 now, and Coolidge will be 8 next month. Cannabis has put food on their plate, on their table since the day they were born. They were 1 and 3 when we started the legal operation, when we started Trailblazin. So I am very careful about who I say it to, what my profession is. The kids are very aware of it too. Like, they're pretty good these days about, coming and asking me, can we tell them that we're part of a cannabis community? Can we tell them what you do? Usually the answer is no. So that is a factor of it. And now the other side of it is they haven't always been that sophisticated with what they said. And so I think what you're referencing is I had the kids in the car, and I had 2 other kids in the car that were the same ages, and they were probably like 7 and 5. And in the back, Radler, I can hear her, she's like, do you know what cannabis is? And I'm like, oh God, where is this going? And she's like, cannabis is what helps patients kill cancer, because what the doctor gives you kills all the good cells and the bad cells, and cannabis only kills the bad cells. And so if you have cancer, you should use cannabis in order to help. But don't use cannabis with pesticides in it, because pesticides are bad. So what they glean is fantastic, and they get these bits and pieces, which is great. Now, the follow-up to that, of course, is I have to call the mom, right? And be like, so my 5 and 7-year-old just had a conversation with your 5 and 7-year-old about cannabis, and I want you to know how it goes. I usually preface it with like, I gotta talk to you. So it sounds like their kid did something wrong, so that when I tell them that this is really what happened, that it's really not nearly as bad as that their kid was injured or hurt or whatnot. So there's a lot of that. Usually the parents, we live in an incredibly liberal area. 67% of our city voted to approve legalization, so that's a super majority. When we went to my son went to play soccer, because I finally pulled the soccer mom card. There was one other kid on his 10-person team whose mother and father owned a cannabis farm, and so we're not alone. And so it's been it's easy to talk to people these days in this town. It's different depending on where you go, though, obviously. So kids have not suffered yet because of our industry. And in fact, the Liquor and Cannabis Board, because of COVID, has made emergency rules to allow children at our farm, and my kids are ecstatic. They are so happy to be able to come to work with mama and papa. They're not real big fans of the smell of amnesia. They love the sticker, right? Like it's just, they just see it from their point of view.
That's great. And talk about education. You know, that's a whole nother level for them. What about talking to kids? What advice would you have? And I don't know if other parents do other parents ask you that? Hey, how do I talk to my children about cannabis? And if they don't, I'm going to ask you now.
I actually wrote an article on this for Whatcom Talks, which is like a happy news story. And it was one of their most shared articles of all time. I think that, you know, this is not specific to cannabis. This is when raising children. You want to be age appropriate and you want to be honest. And you want to make sure that your communication style with your children is one that they feel safe talking to you about anything. And so that just comes over to cannabis as well. You know, we have not hit those teenage years yet, where I know that it'll be a different conversation than what we have now. But based on teenagers rebelling, I'm pretty sure my kids will either be super religious or super goth in order to rebel. I can only hope that they use cannabis to rebel. So we have very honest conversations about drugs, sex, cannabis, whatever it is. They know that cannabis is for adults unless you're really sick, and in which case it can be for kids as well. But just like alcohol isn't for children, because their brains are still developing, neither is cannabis unless there's a medical necessity. So.
Excellent. Yeah. What Bob Marley say, teach your children the truth.
Right.
And then we don't have to remember what we told them.
Well, and then they're just so much more emotionally mature, right? They have these conversations with other people and they come and they ask questions. And I think it opens that communication door with our children so that they're not getting information from their friends and they're getting it from somebody, their parents, who can give them real information and not fake news.
Excellent. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we're going to ask Jason to introduce himself, and then we'll open the floor for questions, so y'all get ready for that. My last question to you, I think, or almost last question, is what advice would you have? We have some people on the phone today who are taking class. They're either thinking about changing careers or thinking about doing this to supplement income. What advice would you have? And that might be a long list, but briefly, what are some things people should just be aware of?
Do your research. That's going to be the first one. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. My husband and I made $0 for the first 4 years, and we are now comfortably making minimum wage. Everyone at our company makes more money than we are. So if you're getting this to get rich quick, you might want to think about a different career. I would encourage you, if you're looking for jobs with companies, to really vet those companies. There are some great companies that probably can't pay as much, but have the values that you're looking for. And then there's going to be some really, they sound really fantastic companies and they've got all this money, but they don't have the love of the plant and the values and the company culture that you might be looking for. So really decide what it is you're looking for. Talk to their current employees, talk to their previous employees, because a lot of these guys, don't have a solid structure in order to withstand the test of time. And it's brutal. It is a really, really hard thing, but I think one of the best things that Trailblazin tries to do, we have 25 employees, is to create this sense of loyalty and that we're all in this together and that, we're going to do what's best for everybody here. And Risa or Stacy or some of these other guys can tell you if we were doing a good job or not. But that's really our goal, is to make sure that we're going to take care of everybody. So.
And I think you were pretty nice when it came to some other companies. And I won't hold back as much. There are truly some people in this either gold digging or want to take advantage of both the public and their employees, or it can just be a real fraternity of environment where it's male dominated and maybe misogynistic and just very immature. And it's nice to have a bong policy where you can consume on site, but that doesn't always contribute to a professional atmosphere. So
no one at our place consumes on site. They lose their jobs if they're caught consuming on site.
And so, but there are certainly some where it's a different environment. So do your homework. Definitely talk to people who work there. See what other people are saying on sites like Glassdoor, Indeed. See what people who've left there have to say.
Ladies, make sure that there's other ladies in management.
Mhm.
Like that's a really big piece of the puzzle. And if there are not women that have not just management positions, but a real voice, then that would be a red flag to me.
Amen. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, would you mind introducing yourself briefly, and we're going to open the floor for questions.
Sure. Hey, Trey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, we can. Thanks.
Yeah. My name is Jason Limers, General Manager at 420 Wholesale Pack, also a board member at the Cannabis Alliance, and chairing up the Packaging Waste Committee. That's also kind of morphed into just all-around general waste issues at the Cannabis Alliance as well. And I'm just about getting ready to roll out a new joint tube product that's made from 100% recycled plastics.
And that's going to reduce waste by approximately how much? I've heard some numbers.
Well, we actually did a couple of things. We got a couple of rules changed at the Alliance for reducing our bag thicknesses as well as getting rid of dosing cups. So that was literally, I think, about a 38, almost 40 ton per year savings potentially in plastic usage. And then as far as the recycled plastic tubes, I mean, I haven't quantified that, but that could be a really, really big number. Right now, essentially every single doob tube that's manufactured is made of virgin materials. And so every time you throw a doob tube away or purchase a doob tube, that's virgin plastic, and then it doesn't get recycled. So we're going to start manufacturing here in Washington State. They're going to be made from 100% recycled plastics. We're sourcing even the recycled resins from the U.S. so that we know it's legitimate and that we're actually, addressing an issue. And the awesome thing is we made it price competitive to the Chinese product. So we really think it's going to be a market disruptor.
No, that's excellent. And y'all, these things really do add up. And as a consumer, we hope that you're taking the time to consider, is my product pesticide free? Is this a sustainable packaging as much as the rules will allow? We hope that consumers are making choice just not based on price alone, because we know if you're going to be consuming something, especially something you're taking into your lungs, we hope you're taking extra consideration for your health, because there are certainly people out there who are thinking about your health. But if you don't side with them, then you're kind of on your own. And we found out that in the vape crisis the hard way. And so we don't want to learn those lessons again. Now, I know some people on the phone know Danielle, but that shouldn't stop you from asking a question today, especially a difficult one while you got her on the hook. Anybody got a question?
I got a question for you, Danielle.
Shoot.
So it's on solar. I've talked to a lot of growers in the time I've been a packaging supplier, and of course, a lot of growers are very opinionated and have all the answers oftentimes. And so I've heard a wide range of opinions on solar and whether it can be a viable solution for like indoor growers like yourself. So do you use it? And if so, and even if whether you do or don't, do you think it is a viable solution?
That's such a good question. I thought you were going to ask me to buy your doob tubes, and the answer is yes. So we looked into solar right away in 2014, 2013 when we were starting this out. And the way that it worked at that point in time was because we lease our building, if we put solar on the building, the electricity savings went to the landlord, not to us. And so that was not viable based on our location. We are certainly, there is other opportunities to put the solar somewhere else. And so that's the way we would have to do it. From an LED perspective, it is viable. And I think we should be looking at that. But we just have to find another location. And when you are in the throes of this industry, you have a to-do list that's about 4.5, 5 pages long all the time. And so it's just a question of priority. So when we build our next facility, I'm sure we'll look into solar because we'll own it.
And the fact that you're already running LEDs is huge. I know I learned this fact from an Alliance meeting from somebody who came in, I don't know, it's Department of Agriculture, I can't quote the person, but they said that at the time, this was 3 years ago, the energy it took to produce 1 pound of cannabis in the state of Washington could power a Prius from Seattle to DC and back. And so that's 1 pound. And so tremendous amount of energy consumption. And so kudos to y'all for doing what you can right now and continue to look for answers on that.
Thanks.
Who else would like to? Kristen, what you got?
I have a question. So there's a lot of talk about farm to consumer sales. And I would like to know what you think about that. And then what do you think would be the best way to approach it?
So what I think about it from a Trailblazin perspective, or what I think about it from an Alliance perspective, an industry?
No, we'll say from the Trailblazin perspective.
Yeah, I'm all for it because our location is in Industrial Park. It's inside of Bellingham. We already have parking. I know that even though we're not considered agriculture, we would not have a problem with a city selling on hand. Our location is perfectly set up to be able to do a retail space in the front room. Like, it works perfectly for us. The police are across the street in case there is a problem. It's perfect for us. From an industry standpoint, I think because we're not considered agriculture in Washington State, there's a lot of people who think that they're going to be able to sell from their farms and they're going to run into local problems, local jurisdiction problems. I think that several retailers are going to have a fit because of it. And I think that we have to be very careful about writing the boundaries to make sure that your biggest producer processors aren't just able to create new, farm stands at their, multi-million-dollar facilities. So, I'm all for it.
Boy, so we could come in. I know you can't do a you pick like strawberries, but you could come and show up at Trailblazin in theory and buy whatever's freshly cured out, huh?
You could have a tour. We could change you into scripts. We could. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could do from a tourism aspect that we'd be all about it.
Excellent. Good question. Kim, what you got?
Jim?
Oh, Kim, sorry. Kim, we can't hear you though. You might have to unmute on your end on the bottom left-hand corner.
It looks like she's unmuted.
It looks like she's unmuted. We just don't have a mic for you for some reason. But we'll come back to you. I got a question in the interim. We have some people on the line who are actively or about to look for jobs in the industry. What are some things, as you're vetting employees, you talked about valuing diversity, but what are some other things that are a must for you, or some things that you're considering?
Come looking to learn. Even if you've been growing for 20 years, don't call yourself a master grower. We hire based on personality. So we can teach anybody what they need to learn. It's nice. Risa can teach anybody to trim, 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds a day. That we're looking for personalities. We're looking for people that have a glass is half full mentality of the world, that will mesh with the other people at our workspace. And that's our focus, and that are looking for a team. The rest of it, it's not rocket science. I never got seriously into the corporate world because the idea of working up a ladder sounded awful to me, because I'm already fantastic. Why do I have to start at the bottom? But now that we have a company and honesty becomes a really big thing, and concerns of theft, we've got to start from inside. We've got to hire from the bottom up inside. Mm-hmm. And then it also shows kind of like the loyalty that people are willing to show our company. If they're willing to start off at the bottom rung and they work hard even when things are difficult, then we know that they can be lifelong people there.
Excellent.
We still have original hires, people that we hired in November of 2014, they are still there.
That's fantastic. And so that gives stability to other people's families. And trust, like you said, is a huge thing, because not only is in a typical workspace is loss from theft hurt the bottom line, but in this case you could actually lose your license.
Yep.
So Matthew, you're online. If you want to say hello, Matthew posted that they're hiring for a packaging position. Matthew, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about that briefly?
Sure, yeah. My name is Matthew. I'm one of the owners of Scheduled Organics. We are in need of 1 or 2 possibly packaging specialists to help with our process. Yep.
Awesome.
We're located just outside of Mount Vernon.
Awesome. So you see, all, not all jobs are posted online for sure. And so another reason that it's a good idea to get cued in or tied in with your professional organization that's local to you, and become just as local as possible. Danielle is operating on several levels of locality, on the state level, on the micro local level, and it all matters, right?
Yep. I'll mention too, when it comes to hiring, we never put our name as a business when we're hiring people because we don't want other farms to send in spies and try to get hired and then take that information back to somebody else and work for us for a year and then leave.
Mm-hmm.
So before anybody, you know, we hire based off of, we ask for a cover letter and a resume because we realize a lot of people might have experience that doesn't go on a resume.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally hire off of the cover letter. We will also Facebook stalk you. So if you have pictures of like bong rips on your Facebook page and, you know, just super heady, like not a serious professional, you won't even get an interview. So just be aware that your social media is being looked at by prospective employers.
So you're not impressed if I could do the dab challenge?
No, I'm worried about why you're wasting a gram of concentrate and how many pesticides are in that gram for you to be willing to smoke it all in one sitting.
Amen. Who else? Anybody else got a question?
Jim. Danielle, while we're talking pesticides, you had mentioned that there are only 2 out of the well over 1,000 registered farms that are producing stuff to the DOH cert, which is basically tested for pesticides and tested for heavy metals. I just looked at some data that suggests that for calendar year 2019, 1.20% of overall retail sales were made to patients, which means they did not have state sales tax tied to them. So it's 1/88th of the market, basically. Do you think, with respect to the market's lack of embracing this as defined by the Department of Health and all, do you think it's a matter of ignorance on the part of consumers? Do you think people just assume their product is being tested for pesticides and are unaware how little of it is?
I mean, consumers and bud tenders. I think
bud tenders.
I have had owners of retailers tell us that everything is for pesticides and that nothing is special about our cannabis. Like to this day. And because farmers are in the position that we are in Washington State, it is not our position to argue with them. But we might, send them a little bit of links to some WACs after that, some Washington Administrative Code. So we've always said that our target audience starts like PCC and Whole Food shoppers. It's people that spend extra money to buy organic because they care about the environment and they care about what they put in their bodies and whatnot. We have not seen that kind of consumer confidence move from food to weed. And we can't quite figure out why, except for a lack of education. Because if you are not only consuming it, but you're combusting it and literally changing the chemical makeup and oftentimes concentrating it, there's a disconnect there where people just don't care. You know, I'd love to see retailers with shelves of, this has been tested for pesticides. If I was a retailer, I wouldn't let a sample come through my door that hadn't been tested for pesticides. Mm-hmm. But because of the way the Washington State system was set up, which I don't have to tell you about, we have a long way to go to get the retailers to help educate consumers, which would theoretically be the easiest way to go about this. So we've got to figure out another way to do it.
Well, my thanks to Trailblazin for going through all the hoops necessary to ensure that all of the product is tested and that the consumers can have such confidence. I just wish more of your peers took those steps, Danielle.
Thank you. And my goal is that they would all take those steps, is that we elevate the industry where everybody is pesticide testing, and tested with confidence is a great job. I tell people if they can't find the DOH logo to go to that website and to pick any of those brands, because we know that they're testing for pesticide on a lot batch level. So there are a lot of ways to do this. We just have to get them to care.
And thank you, Lara. Lara posted the link for Tested with Confidence. Danielle probably is not shy about bragging about it, but I'll tell you from a person that doesn't work for her, their flour is wonderful. We typically buy flour over concentrates, but the just terpy goodness, great quality. You're not going to buy that bud that just crumbles into dust because it's over cured or over dried. It's just good. It's what most people would like to be able to grow on their own.
Thanks, Trey.
No, it really is.
We've got a kitchen that is getting its final inspection next week. So we should have tinctures and capsules on the market.
Oh.
I know. And then our next push will be to change the limit, change the rules so that you can put, I want 100 1 milligram capsules, right? I don't want 10 milligrams because I want to be able to take my health and wellness into my own hands and figure out how much I need. We also at Trailblazin, we go by total cannabinoid, not by THC, because everything we have experienced is that the CBG and the CBN and everything else in there is really important for the person's ultimate high. So thank you for your vote of confidence. Our lead gardener is a woman. She did learn everything she knows from Juddy, but our two lead gardeners, our veg mom and our flower mom, are both women. Risa is in charge of trimming and joint rolling, there's a lot of extra care and tendencies that go into our grows.
And I'm going to turn one more time to Kim. Kim, did you get the audio working? Oh, we can't hear you, Kim. I can't.
I can't.
But you could. I'm sorry.
James had a question too, and I'd love to.
James, what you got?
Well, actually, I have two. I'll try to keep it quick. I assume you're primarily a dirt farm instead of
we're
hydroponics.
a soilless media, which looks like dirt to me, but I'm told it's not dirt.
All right. I'm into aquaponics, and I didn't know if you've ever thought about or dabbled in growing aquaponically.
We have not. Part of that is because we did not know, as federal legalization happens, will it be considered organic, right? So when we can start getting these like federal certificates, how does that play into it? Because I'm sure you've seen that for hydroponics, they're fighting over that one as well.
I have a aquaponic. I have spent years setting up and building aquarium systems and aquaponic systems, small aquaponics. I have a small aquaponic system in my house, actually. And the only fertilizer is what the fish give. And that is the most organic I could ever find.
Yeah.
And I put in little chive plant, little basil plants just like a couple weeks ago. Boom! They're quadrupled, 5 times sized in just a couple of weeks.
Did you do that for pest management?
Pardon?
Did you do that for pest management?
Partly. We are wanting to have fresh herbs anytime we want for cooking. My wife and I love to cook. We got a great kitchen. So this is primarily our little herb garden. But I'm going to be setting up another little thing for more vegetables, what have you. And I used to have a small company called Crystal Marble, and I set up aquariums and small aquaponic systems. So that's one of the reasons I asked. I've never grown cannabis ever under any sort of media. So that's what
I know there is a professional farm in Washington that is 100% aquaponics. And maybe one of the Alliance people can tell me who it is.
THC Farms out of Tacoma.
What was that again?
THC Farms out of Tacoma.
Could you type that up so I am having trouble hearing you very well. That would be great.
There we go.
Oh, fantastic.
And we're going to turn to Kim real quick. Thank you, James. Kim wanted to know how many times can you reuse your soil and how many times and what's the process basics for that, for enriching it again?
So they purposely keep me out of the garden so that I can't tell too much. I can tell you that we have been, we're probably like in our 5 out of our 6 rooms are now reused soil. I have no idea how many times that we can reuse it, but theoretically it's forever. I know that we have worm bins now. That's all I got.
Okay.
I'm sure you could talk to Juddy and he will give you more answers that will help satisfy, but not give away any secrets.
But it's great to know you don't have a mountain of used soil sitting behind your farm somewhere.
Or throwing it away. We were having to put it in plastic bags and throw it away because we couldn't find anywhere else to legally get rid of it.
And at some point, somebody will come wanting to buy your roots, but we're not there yet. So
yes, they will.
because they will realize. So thank you so much today, Danielle. Thank you all for participating. This is why we do this. We're really fortunate and blessed to have great, smart friends in the industry. A lot of them are on the call today. Thank you for being with us. We want to ask you to join us. We're on the first and third Saturday of every month at noon. You can find the links on Facebook and Instagram. We'll always post them there. We encourage you to add Trailblazin both to Instagram and Facebook. They do a great job of showing you all kind of beautiful sites around Washington where they display their products. So if you don't get a chance to go out and hike, live vicariously through them, because Danielle is posting some beautiful shots all the time. And our next Saturday sesh will be on the first Saturday of June, and we're going to have Andrew D'Angelo on. Andrew is the CEO and runs Harborside Health out of Oakland, one of the oldest dispensaries in the country. They've been through tremendous legal challenges over the years and continue to come back. They're like the Phoenix. And he also co-founded the Last Prisoner Project, and that's really what he's going to be here to talk to us about, is what the work that they're doing to help free cannabis prisoners and to help records get expunged. And that's critical work, as we always want to remind people this has had a tremendously negative, the drug war has had a tremendously negative effect on people, especially communities of color. So he's going to talk to us about justice and what we could do to support their efforts. So we hope that you'll come back on June 6th. We'll post the link on our Facebook. Thanks again, Danielle, for being with us today. Thanks everybody for joining us. We hope you all have a great Saturday, and we'll see you around.